when we last left the party.
How would you feel about a trip to Aegir? I've heard of a necromantic cult.
Yeah, know anyone in the area?
Her name is Mistress Eileen.
There is a dwarven woman.
Hello, lady!
We were sent by Harper J.
He told us to seek you out.
Of course I know necromancers. I am one of them. She kind of reaches into her robe and she pulls out a red shard of glass wrapped in cloth. What brings you here to the temple?
Found this cloth with some writing that we do not understand, and I was wondering if maybe you could potentially read it?
It says, the moon shows the path, Kelemvor puts all to rest. He does not finish the sentiment when the Sphinx looks up at him and the beams of light emitting from its eyes turn red.
No, we need to protect him!
But he cannot be executed on holy ground. Take him to the Golden Prince.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Whack-A-Roll. My name is Luke, I'm your GM, and I'm slowly IV dripping my blood out of my body and replacing it with ginger beer.
Hi, I'm Tom. This week, a medical professional confirmed suspicions that I'd been walking wrong my entire life. And yet, I'm still more capable than my magically endowed highwayman, Phalark.
Hi, I'm Dora, I play Philippe, and my brain just went.
Where did it go, Dora? Where did it go?
I don't know.
We'll never know.
I'm
Go
sorry.
get it then. Stop
I'm
recording
sorry.
a stupid goof podcast and go find your real brain.
And I'm Al. I'm ready to throw down in a McDonald's at any time. Don't test me, bitch! And I play Yaga.
Have you had an issue at McDonald's recently, or...?
Some lady told me, like, try to give me shit today, and I flipped her off. Like, I wish I had said something more. This is a customer, not an employee.
There goes our McDonald's sponsorship.
Just hooked her up to the McFlurry machine and just pressed go and left her there.
Okay, so at the end of last week, the three of you and Adrian... Oh, it's hard to explain what happened. Y'all got arrested.
Uh-oh.
We got Sphinxed.
About time, really.
I think we opened this episode with the four of you in a jail cell. I think Adrian, who now I actually have to describe because, you know, he wasn't meant to be a character.
Don't make him so compelling, then. It's your own fault.
It was so compelling. we can remember so much about him.
Like his name.
Especially his name.
To contextualise this goof, we spent about 5 minutes of me listening to the last episode trying to remember his name before we started recording today. It's a poorly lit, like, dim, dank, slightly, like, mouldy, like, with this sort of, like, green slime on the walls, on these, like, yellow sandstone walls with, you know, your traditional, like iron bars covering the window and the door. Outside of the door are a pair of these royal guards dressed in gold uniform with blue spears and like cloth, I guess. They stand with their like spears crossing the gate. Now, the four of you were led here from the church with the priest of that church. You know that he is currently in discussion regarding your arrest. Meanwhile, the only other person that's really here is Adrian, of course, who is like walking backwards and forwards, like pacing, like his head in his hands, like just mumbling to himself, quite like panically.
First time in jail?
Obviously.
I think he looks at you and he's like, "Yes, it's the first time I live my life. I live my life to the book. You know, like."
Listen, it's your first offence. They'll go easy on you.
Yeah,
My first offence is necromancy. The punishment is death. There is no middle ground here.
I live my life to the book as well. It's just that the book happens to be 101 stealthy tips for robbing people.
The guard, I think, outside the gate kind of looks at you when you say that.
It's a
Kidding.
joke. He's just a joke.
Give me a deception check.
I don't think that book exists. I don't think I'm deceiving him.
Yeah, but you're insinuating that you rob people, Tom. The insinuation is there.
Fine, 21.
Well, to be fair, I think we all know that the concept of Tom actually robbing someone in a timely fashion is a lie to begin with. So...
I am an artist.
I think that, you guys have been in here for a couple of hours, maybe. Cups of, quite, lukewarm, gross water are handed to you at one point.
Doesn't matter.
With, some bread. Because you can create and destroy water.
Yep.
You can destroy water?
Yeah. That's the spell.
That's
Create
spell.
/ destroy water.
Water is finite.
Does it turn into gas, or is it just gone from existence?
Yeah, that's my question.
Well, I look
That's
like
a really good
fucking
question, actually.
scientist. I'm a swamp woman. The water's here, the water's not here. Who cares?
I think it water vapors. I think that, the water cycle continues.
Helps create swampy conditions when it disappears.
Yeah. Now, the big problem here is this conversation is going to bite me in the ass at some point when Al's like, I create water vapor! After this 2-hour period. You hear, a door open somewhere nearby, and you hear approaching footsteps.
Hello?
The father of the church is let into the jail cell. At which point he kind of, waves his hand, and 2 guards leave the area. He kind of looks to you guys and says... They're just up ahead. They're still here. Don't think this is some sort of get out of jail free card or anything.
What is that a reference to now?
The board game Monopoly.
Oh, we have that. That's interesting.
God damn it. What do all the fucking spaces say? Or is it still Park Lane and everything?
Yeah, it's still
About
real...
London.
No,
London
it's-
exists. It sucks.
Oh my god, Uncle Pennybags is a real fucking character in this world.
I think that, he kind of takes a seat on one of those wooden benches that dangle from the wall uncomfortably. He kind of looks at you all and says, "This is a mighty fine pickle that you've all found."
Sorry,
yourself
could you speak
in.
up? I'm very hard of hearing.
This is a mighty fine pickle that you've all found yourself in.
Do they have pickles in the desert?
Yes.
Can I have a pickle?
You're in jail for necromancy. This is not the time for jokes. I think.
Necromancer? I hardly know her.
That's everything from this podcast, guys. You have to find another one. I'm shutting this one down. It's over.
Can somebody just play the Seinfeld noise?
I've managed to talk His Royal Highness into giving us a proper trial rather than the normal punishment for your sort.
It just implies that they don't normally have trials here.
No, they do not. The punishment for necromancy, if you get caught with evidence of necromancy, it's instant execution.
I didn't even do a necromancy.
It's just because he's an accessory. He's with us, and we're accessories. Isn't that right, Adrian?
I think when you say accessories, Adrian are you? No, it was them. It was them. They were the ones that.
It's the man trying to pin me down.
Philippe just a child. He has so many more years to live.
We don't have long.
Which means shut up and listen.
Yes, it does. Now, there are going to be 3 judges presiding. I have managed to convince His Royal Highness to let me be one. The other 2 will be His Royal Highness himself and the captain of his royal guard. And he kind of stands up, brushes himself off. He pulls out a pocket watch from on a chain and looks at it and says, "You have half an hour. I would discuss what sort of defense you're going to put up, and hopefully, I really pray for you that you can convince the prince otherwise."
Before you go, Father, by what manner should we address the judges? Is it Your Highness? Is it Your Honour? We're no fae here.
Is it bitch?
No, it's not, bitch.
I think he slaps you.
Is he in the jail cell?
Yes,
Yeah.
he's in the...
Oh, right, okay. I thought he was looking at us through the bars, just try it, mate.
He sat on the gross bench.
Failark takes 1 damage.
Ow.
Failark does 18 hit your AC.
Yeah.
Take 4 points of damage as he just backhands you.
Fucking hell, that's a bit rude.
You called him a bitch!
I got him a bitch.
He's one of the judges.
I assume he's got a lot of rings on hand, so it's just like left ring imprints on Phalak's face.
Yeah, definitely. Now Dora's pointed out he does have a ring on his hand for an extra +1 to slap damage. No,
Harder, father.
I think he says, don't speak foul of the Prince of the Desert.
Alright.
So do we call him the Prince of the Desert?
Yes,
Your liege,
my liege.
his liege, your majesty, my liege,
All the
any of
honorifics?
these.
Okay,
Any royal honorific will do.
right.
Why are you so interested in helping us out anyway?
Well, it's the only thing I could do. There is an obscure law here that states that I can challenge the royal authority of law so long as a crime took place upon my temple. I have a chance to save your sorry souls.
But why?
It would be against my faith not to.
Insight check.
19?
I rolled a whole 10.
He is telling the truth. He just genuinely is just like trying to be nice and trying to help someone.
Oh man.
Rather than see someone get instantly executed.
Oh, what a good religious person.
The father bows and leaves you to it. Now, you all have 30 minutes in game to discuss what your defense is.
So we're representing ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Do I get bonuses for my law knowledge?
Yes, you do.
Hooray.
I assume it would be a bad idea to mention that we're actually going after Necromancer.
But that's the best defense we have, is investigative.
But the thing is, it might put a massive target on our heads if there is...
Well, look, we can use that as a last resort if nothing else works.
Yeah.
I think that when you say that, Adrian looks at you and goes, says, "You're hunting the necromancers?"
No,
No. And I think he kind of sits down and he
you
says,
are.
like, this is perfect. We have to use that. This is a... You said you just found that scrap of paper. If you told me the truth, I would have helped you. This is great. We can use that. You can tell us where you found the scrap. This will be fine.
Now, there's a reason, Adrian, that we didn't tell you everything, and that's the exact reason that we just stipulated right there. And I
That's
can't believe
right.
we were so stupid as to forget that we were not alone in this room.
Soz Adrian.
Your GM loves you for it.
Very on brand, actually.
I think Adrian is kind of like a little miffed and then just sort of crosses his arm and says, "If you won't tell the court that you're necromancer hunters, I will.
Hey,
Whose side are you on?
My own.
Ugh.
You have got me on the chopping block for this. The Sphinxes saw me.
We have
Okay,
already
Adrian?
apologized for it. If we did not care, we could have ran and left you, but we stayed to try and help you. Now stop being a little bitch.
Oh my god.
Philippe, where did you learn that?
From you
you.
earlier.
Oh yeah.
Literally today.
Don't tell your auntie.
Best dad.
Adrian, now think practically. Do you know the scope of this necromantic cult's influence? Because we don't.
I think that he kind of like... Adrian thinks for a second, says like, all I know is that they exist. You see them occasionally, they like in the middle of the night, looking up into the sky, and if the second anyone sees them, they run. Rumor has it that they meet somewhere in the city every night, and some people say they're evil because they're necromancers, but
Checks out.
it's hard to say for sure. But if you have any idea where they are, then we can use that. I think he kind of like starts to stand up and paces back and forth, and he says, Aegir has 3 kinds of punishment: imprisonment, death, and fines. Most people would consider the fines to be the worst.
Well, they do not have their priorities straight.
The Golden Prince only trades in things that he thinks are valuable, and he has everything. What he doesn't have is so rare that it is considered to be so valuable. And if you know where to find the necromancers, if you can hunt them and finally cleanse his city of this evil, we could use that to buy our freedom.
Yes, but we don't know if anybody watching from the courtroom is going to be part of this necromantic order.
No, because, yeah.
Very convincing.
Use that legal degree out.
Look, you follow our lead. Don't blurt out about the necromancers and the hunting and all of that, because again, we don't know who's in the crowd. Wait for our signal. If I do this and I just make some weird hand gestures.
Describe
Give
those
them
hand
finger
gestures
guns.
to me, Tom.
If I give you finger guns during the trial, then it's free to talk about the necromancers and what
How we're
doing here.
totally good guys who are gonna hunt them, but we need to not be followed by anybody representing the city. We're mercenaries and we work alone.
Yeah, totally. That's it. It makes us sound really cool as well, though.
Yeah.
I think at this point, a couple of guards come. There's maybe like 5 of them this time, rather than normal 2 that've been patrolling your cell. They open the door. They kind of point their spears in and say, "All prisoners stand."
I have a quick question, because I was going to ask something of Adrian before the guards came.
The guards disappear for 5 seconds.
Wait, we forgot Terry.
Wait, we forgot Eduardo. Eduardo loves escorting prisoners, and it's his birthday. How could we forget Eduardo? They lock the cell and they run off.
One thing I want to ask before we head in, do we need all the judges' approval, or just 2 out of the 3? Because clearly we have one of them on our side, so we just at least need to persuade one other if it's 2 out of 3.
We need 2 out of 3, but the father is a fair man. If we can't convince him, I wouldn't say he's in our pocket. I would say that he's here to listen and learn, and I think that he would judge us fairly on the case we provided. I think at this point, 6 guards approach the jail cell. One of them's wearing a really nice party hat. And
Does he have one of those massive badges that's like, "It's my birthday"?
Yes, he totally does. And I think
he
that
presses it and it lights up.
I think the same guard has the key, and then they all say they stand before you and say, "All prisoners rise."
Happy birthday, Eduardo.
Happy birthday to you.
Prisoners will be silent.
Oh.
I think that they give the key to Eduardo, and then they look at you and go, "For he's a jolly good fellow,
for he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow, and let me out of jail."
And Eduardo's just like, "Thanks, guys. You know how to make a birthday really special." And unlocks the jail cell. Is like, "Right, you prisoners, scum, on your feet."
Happy birthday.
Eduardo,
Thanks.
what's your wish? I'm a witch, you know.
I think he leans forward and says, "I've always wished my dog could talk to me. He's the closest friend a man could ask for.
What's his name?
His name's Abba."
Oh, good. I was worried about me. I was worried about me, Dan. Hey, just Eduardo. Just so you know, that's something we can maybe help you with.
I think he says, "Well, first of all, you've got to not die in court."
Well,
and then,
yeah, that's the thing. See, we could help you and make your dog talk.
Relax, shut
but
up, he gets it.
If
I think that he looks at you and goes, "I get what you're saying, but at the same time, the GM has the plot prepared at the courtroom scene, and you're not skipping that.
Dun, dun.
okay,
We're doing the jail scene.
No,
we're doing it."
that's fine. Just if we do real bad, talking dog.
Give me a persuasion check.
That is a. Oh, hang on. 16 plus 7.
3.
Yeah.
He's like, "That would be great." And then
Right.
you guys are led to the fucking throne room. Please let me get on with my story.
Dun dun.
We're already an entire session off the rails right now.
Heck.
You guys are supposed to have met the necromancers by now. This is all a mistake.
Runaway minecart.
This is like episode 4 of the arc. I thought it was going to be 4 episodes. You guys are led by Spearpoint into the throne room of Aegir's Golden Palace. In front of you sits the Golden Throne. It is this solid gold chair that is designed to look like multiple stacks of teetering gold coins, on which, bundled in gaudy gold chains, purple like fur robes that are way too hot for the heat of the desert, sits this obese kobold. He wears a gaudy gold crown and holds a scepter. His entire scaly like snout is pierced with like golden hoops and studs, so that he sort of like clinks and rattles every time he makes the slightest movement of his head. And when you enter, he barely even looks at you before turning back to a scroll that he's scrawling on, covered in numbers that you understand to be prices and turnovers and such that he is calculating through. To his left stands the father of the church. To his right stands a minotaur, clad in very fine, like blue silks, holding a great axe by one side, who has a series of like golden sigils indicating that he is like, ranks almost, showing that he is like the captain of the royal guard. There is silence for a few moments while the golden prince finishes off whatever it is he was looking at, and then he stands and looks at you and goes,
"Are you the necromancers?"
Not so, Your Highness. And I also bow, because I'm not an idiot.
Philippe bows too.
Phalark bows, Your Majesty.
And Adrian also bows, because
about
I
to
have a
say.
character in this as well. It's weird. I'm a GM. I don't play games. I don't have characters. And then I think he waves his hand to let you rise. And when he does, I think there is like a series of thudding coming from behind the throne, and two of those mechanized like patrol sphinxes enter from behind the throne, behind two great curtains, and they settle down either side of the throne.
Kitty.
And their eyes light up, and you are projected in this like white light. And first of all, the white light sort of like creates like almost like a series of like scan lines along Phalark's body. So the Sphinx scans Phalark, and then it lifts its head, its mouth opens, and a voice booms from inside. It says, "Jimmy Fingers, looking for a concubine." Then I think it scans Adrian, and it says, "Adrian White, known soap seller to Algier." Next up, it scans Philippe.
You sell soap?
And I think he says, "You never asked." And then it scans Philippe, and it says, "Phil P. Phillips, looking to sell his rock." And then it scans Yaga, and its eyes turn red, and it says, "Unknown to the city."
Yaga.
Oh, it's 'cause
At
it
which
was a
point
cat.
the prince looks at you and says,
How did you get in the city?
I was a cat at the time.
"I appreciate the honesty, Al, and I also love the fact that you caught that."
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the dumb shit I've done.
You snuck past our sentry
I don't.
as a cat.
I don't have any papers, Your Highness, because I'm a swamp woman.
Just imagine Yaga breaking down. I am a swamp woman.
I think that he just sort of like, and he scribbles something on a sheet of parchment,
No.
and then turns to you and says,
You all stand accused of the foulest crime of the city, necromancy. How do you plead?
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Well, of course you do, Yeah, not guilty.
and then he scribbles something down the bit of paper and says,
Right.
and I think he snaps his fingers, and one of the sphinxes starts to project an image. It projects an image of Philippe, Yaga, and Adrian standing outside the church chatting. We see clearly as the camera kind of approaches, obviously from the Sphinx's perspective, as it approaches them, and Philippe and Yaga hand Adrian something, and I think Adrian winces at this point, and we hear their voices, and then we hear quite clearly Adrian saying the line, "The moon shows the path," read out loud in Adrian's voice, and he just like winces, And I think the video stops and the prince says, I think that's all we need to see. And he kind of like glares at the priest. And the priest goes to say something when the Minotaur speaks. He says, I have a question. And he looks to Phalark and says, Jimmy Fingers,
Yo.
where were you in all of this?
Does the Sphinx like pan down the steps just to show like me buttoning my trousers as I run up there?
No, it does not.
Oh, cool. I've got some folks who can vouch for me. I was, like you heard, you know what my reason was for entering the city? That.
So you have an alibi.
I have the receipt. It was in my other pants.
He kind of looks at you and says, very well. If you have a receipt, we'll follow that up and see if we can exonerate you on these crimes. However,
Cheers, bro.
I must ask, how do you know these people?
How do I know these people? Well,
Oh, wow.
That's all, folks. Concentric circles slowly close in around our podcast and audio only format.
No, we were. It's a tricky road through the desert. Not usually my forte. And as this lady here says, she is a swamp woman, and this is a little boy. We just kind of decided. We met on the road, decided to stick together. Safety in numbers and all that. I hear there's some problem with their Frekreen out in the desert there. I've actually got some scalps. I've actually got some of their scalps in my bag, which Eduardo took, actually. So if you could look at those, and you'll see we've been killing the monsters for you.
Eduardo's like,
My lord.
I've got them! My lord, I've got them! The captain nods. The captain needs a name. His name is...
Terry Crews.
No.
Kerry Trews.
His name's Kerry Trews.
Yes.
Yes! Hey,
And I think...
hey, Captain, how come the bugs have scalps?
Because they're people bugs.
Okay.
My lord, I think if we are looking to punish, we should only punish the people who were there at the crime, not just some known associate. And I think that he turns to the other three people on trial and says, do you think that fair?
Yeah.
And I think he looks and says, you hesitate.
I mean,
I was just waiting for other people to speak first, so apologies for my politeness. I would say that, yes, he was not there, and he was not present at our mistake.
And I think he looks to Yaga.
I agree with the child. Although part of our party, he had no part in this.
I think he now kind of like... Philippe, could you please give me a deception check?
Well, with a +6, 11.
Dora, get better dice. I think that he looks to... I think he nods, but before he does, he says, actually, I have one question for Mr. Fingers before he leaves.
Please, Mr. Fingers is my father.
Jimmy,
Yes.
what age is Phil?
What age is Phil?
Yes.
The boy.
The boy, yes.
We haven't travelled together all that long. I think he told me he was, I don't think he's even a teenager yet.
I think he then looks at you, Phil, and says, then why does your identification say you're 18, Phil?
It is easier for people to believe I am a child than my horrible mixed race.
I didn't see where that was going, I'm so sorry.
The amount of times you guys have been saying child and little one, I've just been here like...
I'm going to take this moment to clarify as a GM that I messaged Dora during the day today, privately, to ask for the exact details that were on her fake ID. So this is how I got the name Phil, and I did something similar with Tom, which is where I got the name Jimmy Fingers. So I have details there, and me and Dora agreed that Philippe's ID legally says that he is not a child. So...
I would like to apologize to these companions. The reason why I lie about my age is that as a half-elf and half-dwarf, I'm very useless. Well, yes, I might have really good elf ears, they are obscured by all the hair that is growing from everywhere, my dwarfness.
Okay, please give me a deception check, Dora. You get another one.
That's an 18.
Woo!
He only got a 16 on the insight. I think that the Golden Prince snorts. He's like, and he scribbles something down on the bit of paper, and then just sort of like waves his hand dismissively and says, "Back to the point."
He now knows that 2 of us are liars. This is not going well.
And I think he then says, I think he looks to Jimmy Fingers and says,
Jimmy Fingers, the Golden Prince of Algier exonerates you of this crime. We apologize for the inconvenience.
and then he says,
Please accept 100 gold pieces as apology for tying you up in all this nonsense.
You're too kind, my prince, and might I say I do look forward to spreading some of this wealth around your fair city. I've eyed a few more attractions that I'd very much like to take advantage of.
I think that he just tosses a brown sack at your feet and like he prepares to wave you off when the priest says, hold on a second.
Uh-oh.
While we have exonerated Mr. Fingers of his crimes today, I would ask that he remains as a potential witness to the scene.
Oh god, I have to testify.
As a potential character witness to the 3 before us.
If you insist.
I think that
my father,
my daddy. I think that the Golden Prince claps his hand, and one of the guards that's not Eduardo goes out and pulls a chair in for you, and you are sat now actually at the front of the hall next to the 3 judges.
Ooh. Can I have my stuff back?
I think that the Golden Prince says,
We will be allowed our things as we leave.
I think that the Golden Prince starts, and I think that he pulls out a familiar piece of cloth that he holds up. It is the cloth that is got the ancient celestial writing on it, and he turns to the Sphinx and says,
As we have seen from the recording today, the child, Phil, and the lady, did we ever catch your name?
You may call me Yaga, my lord.
Phil and Yaga, they were the ones that handed Adrian this.
no, and Adrian instantly interrupts. He's like, yes, they did. They gave it to me. They were the ones who they found it, and they gave it to me.
Up. You are not being spoken to. You're being spoken about.
I think that the Golden Prince glares and then says,
Where did you find this?
It is what brought us to the city in the first place. We found it out in the world.
In the world.
oh, also, deception check, please, Elle.
Yeah,
Where, where did you find
Oh,
this?
bitch! That's a
earth?
19.
The prince does say,
Where? Give me specifics.
A cave east outside of the city of Tayvale.
okay, I see what you're doing there.
Thank you.
I think that he kind of just sort of like grunts and says,
Necromancers are everywhere. But I assume that you have heard of the problem here in Algier.
Yes, my liege. That is why we have come here to have the celestial script translated so that we can investigate further.
If you're investigating, why haven't you approached any of the guards for an official investigation license?
Because we're mercenaries.
If you are mercenaries,
oh, by the way, that's another deception check, please.
Oh, that's still an 18, so that's a 19. Heh.
God damn it. I think that he says,
have you operated in the city of Algier before?
We have not, Your Highness.
It has been quite a lovely experience. Other
I
than this,
very
of course.
enlightening. Beautiful.
You say you're mercenaries.
Yes.
Yes.
Tell me one thing you have done as mercenaries. What guild are you registered under?
The caravan of Jarper Hay.
deception check!
Oh, I'm just letting you roll because I'm so crit fail.
Oh, there's a lot. 9.
I've never heard of Jarper Hay's caravan before.
Well, that's kind of the point, Your Highness.
Maybe they're not very good.
We are a very small
We're
and
new.
upcoming mercenary group. You know, getting off our feet.
I think that the Minotaur speaks, and he says, "My lord, I am up to date on every every registered mercenary guild across Suchao. I've never heard of this guild before. I keep up to date on all of, even the small ones, even the ones with 2-3 members. I am up to date on them. There is no caravan of Jarper hay.
It may have just taken a while for the information to come over. We come from quite far away, and it's very new mercenary guild.
Very disparate bureaucracy. You know, we
I
haven't got the
think-
paperwork done yet.
The Minotaur slams his hoof, and he just
I
says,
predatory
"Lord."
charm him. Predatory charm him. I just like wiggle my eyebrows, like, all right.
Phalar, be a character witness, for God's sake!
Hey, I mean, my prince, my lord, his goldenness. I mean, by the way, I love your crown. It's so pretty, and it really matches the throne super well. You know, I've not known these fellas for very long, as has been pointed out already, but I mean, I must say they do seem like a determined bunch. You know, definitely the kind of people that would do well in the profession of being a mercenary. They're quite tough critters, and certainly very loyal and trustworthy. And again, I must say, I really do love your crown and the throne and those.
I think he looks at you and says,
Enough smarming fingers.
Smart.
That's not my voice. Enough smarming fingers.
Oh, do I not even get to do everything?
"No."
So I want to be his best friend.
The court did nat 20 their insight check on that particular lie. I think that the father actually leans forward and says, one's affinity for strength does not necessarily make them automatically a legal mercenaries guild. If the captain, and he sort of like gives him a bow of the head, does not recognize their guild, then I am inclined to trust him on this. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Fingers?
Well, perhaps. I mean, like I said, rising stars. You gotta love an underdog.
I think that the Minotaur like huffs, and you feel like this warm like breath on your back as he like just sort of like snorts at you.
Is he behind me?
he runs over behind you just to do this one thing intimidatingly, and then runs back. So I think that the Golden Prince jots something down on the bit of paper again and says,
So, according to Mr. Fingers, you travel the desert. You slay a series of Lithricrine in the desert. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think Phalark, you catch Adrian
Look,
definitely making eyes at you.
it's Jimmy Fingers. I'm not giving him finger guns yet. Not good enough.
I think that the Golden Prince then kind of like says,
So, you killed the Lithricrine. You then snuck into my city.
I directed that one at Yaga.
Yeah.
After deceiving the companions which you travelled with.
Looking at Phil. I think he then looks at Phil and says,
Phil, if you have been working in a mercenaries guild,
I am a recent member, but I used to be a travel salesman, and so I still have some wares that I'm trying to sell. So
I think he then stops you and says,
if you were part of this travelling mercenaries guild, why did Yaga not know your age? Why did she continue to call you child? Why is this part of your story that you had this ongoing lie with Yaga?
it is easier for people to think, yes, we can hire a child who could fit into small places, rather than thinking I'm some deformed half-breed. So I have to find work. I'm rejected by my mother's side and my father's side, and this was my only way out.
Jimmy Fingers is sniffling and rubbing his eyes at this.
I think they look to Adrian.
Adrian White, we haven't heard of your side of this story yet.
And he looks anxiously at the party. I think he looks anxiously at Phalark.
Who is narrowing his eyes a little bit, I think.
Give me an intimidation check.
Oh, Balls. 19.
I did not meet Mr. Fingers until we were in prison together. And then, like, his eyes linger on you for 1 second, and then he looks back to the other two and says, I met Phil when they gave me the paper, and I met Yaga at the same time. They approached me claiming to be tourists in the city, and that they had found this and were just looking for a translation. That is all. I read Ancient Celestial as part of my studies to tomorrow, and I think that the father says, I can vouch for that. And then he says, I didn't want to read it. They pushed me into reading it. I told them that I recognized the phrase and that there was trouble if I told them what it was, but they were insistent. And at that point, the prince looks to you and says,
Why was it so important that you got this scrap of cloth translated? Let's go back to the beginning.
and I think he looks to Philippe
Hello.
And says, Phil, do you vouch for the story that you found this in a cave east of Tavor?
Yes, Your Highness.
What were you doing there?
We were there mostly on training purposes, just to give us a simulation to see how I would fare in an actual
Combat environment.
combat environment. Thank you very much. You can tell I struggle a bit with the language.
What is your natural language then?
French?
I think he looks at you and then says,
Would you feel more comfortable in this?
and he says it in perfect Elvish. Dora, do you speak Elvish?
No. Ooh.
Piss.
My father, who was the elf, left long ago. I did not learn Elvish.
And then I think he says,
Is this better?
in broken Dwarvish.
My mother, after being abandoned by a family, refused to ever speak Dwarvish again.
Oh my god.
So then what is your natural language, Phil?
My mother could not speak common tongue either, so she just made bits up, and I've slowly learned bits.
Sorry, Dora, is your answer to the questions, what is your natural languages? None of them. My mother has been guessing this entire time, and it's vaguely English.
Also,
Yes.
she abandoned me.
Right, Dora, give me a deception check with disadvantage, because this lie stinks.
I predatory charm him then. I go, it's a whole puppy. Like, feel sorry for me.
This has never worked before. Let's go.
Lads. That's a nat 20.
Oh, I hate you
Once
so
in a
much.
blue moon.
Right,
Once in a blue moon, Dora will actually succeed on a test. I think that the prince kind of like taps his fingers for a second, and
I have a tragic life.
I think that like he kind of like looks up, and I think that like most people in this world, no one really looks up at a ceiling, and there's a beautiful like blue mosaic in the roof that depicts the prince's life, starting from just an average kobold in a cave, abandoned by his clan, and like just raised off of his own like hard work and like the sweat off his back. And he looks at you and he nods and he says,
Okay, I appreciate that. You were on this trading mission and you just happened upon a necromancer's cave.
Part of it was to see how we coped in terms of stealth and hiding. So I had to essentially adult version hide and seek, but with swords. And so I had to go off and pretend that I was stealthing to get something further in the woods. And when I heard Yaga approaching, I ran into this cave, and that's where I found this cloth.
You just found this scrap of cloth purely by coincidence.
Yes.
And you followed it. You followed an imaginary trail to Algier. Why?
Well, like you said, we've heard about all the issues with necromancers here, and we're potentially seeing if maybe some of them have moved from your wonderful kingdom to where we are from.
could you both now please give me a deception check?
14.
Al takes 14.
That's 15.
15 and 14. I think that the prince takes a seat and says,
I think I've heard enough.
Uh-oh.
Do the prisoners have any closing remarks?
Your Highness, I am very sorry for this huge misunderstanding. Had I realized the results of our actions, we would certainly have never potentially get this poor innocent bystander caught up in this whole mess, and I do greatly apologize for this whole
Yes,
situation.
Your Highness, whatever happens, leave Adrian out of it. He really is. He spoke the complete truth. He has nothing to do with this, in all sincerity.
I think Adrian is almost about to cry when you guys are like this, and he says, I was just trying to help out a couple of nice travellers, sir. And I think that he looks to Jimmy Fingers and says,
Jimmy Fingers, you may now leave.
Might I stay, Your Majesty? So enraptured I am by this young man's story.
I think he says,
For you see, I was abandoned by my family.
deception check.
Fucking...
Oh wait, no.
It's true.
It's true.
Oh, me too.
We start
Sir, I was abandoned by my family. The Minotaur's like, I was abandoned by my family. And Eduardo's like, my dog will always love me.
This is where it turns out the dogs ran away.
Feels like I hate my dog.
He says,
I will take counsel with the other judges.
and they kind of retreat to the throne. They mumble hushedly for a little bit.
While they're doing that, Jimmy Fingers is giving big thumbs up and a smile to everyone.
After a while, they turn back to the group. At which point they then say,
Adrian White, you have been exonerated of your crimes. Please leave.
And Adrian bows deeply and then just fucking bolts. I don't think there's any loyalty to you, really. He knows all of you are... He knows all of you are lying at your asses.
Not totally.
He knows Phalark's name is not Phalark. You told
Does
him
he?
one story, and yes, you were talking in the fucking cell.
Oh yeah.
How long has it been?
Why do I play with you, jackass?
Sorry, my mind's been reconstructing all the characters as Phoenix Wright sprites.
This is the perfect way to run a podcast, is to actually rewrite all the characters in what could be lie, what could be thinly veiled truths. I think he then turns to the other two and says,
For the crime of necromancy,
Oh god.
you are both exonerated.
Why'd you give us the fucking tension and not him? Why did you double Shantae us but make it was a sachet away?
However,
Sorry.
Oh.
I cannot excuse the fact that you entered my city unwillfully, Yakko.
That's fair.
You are practicing mercenaries without a license under the name of a guild that we have no recollection of.
We will get them registered immediately.
Like I said, the bureaucracy, I was just trying to find a secretary that will get on top of it.
Linda in admin is terrible at her job.
And that I cannot excuse. There will be order in Algier. The two of you will suffer a fine. The fine is 3,000 gold pieces a head.
Oh boy.
I think he then says,
I will take the trophies from the queen that you slayed in the desert as part of your fine. Does that sound amenable?
Yes, Your Highness. What does that take off?
there were 6 Queen that you killed, and I will say that each one of those is worth... I'll say 500 gold for each Queen killed.
That's pretty fucking good.
Alright, but it's still a big fine.
You are looking for the necromancers underneath my city, and you have a lead.
And he throws the cloth back to you and says,
I will waive the remainder of the fine if you find them and deliver them to me. How does that sound?
That's probably fair.
You are very generous, my lord. Your Highness.
The guard We'll take you to formally register the fine, and then we'll return you to your belongings, and you will leave. And do not cross my doorway again.
We will try. Promise you that.
Hey everybody, welcome to the middle bit. Hoo boy, this is another long one. We've kind of been skirting around the edge of the main story for a while now. We still super want to keep the content in, but so this arc doesn't become like 1,000 episodes long, we thought it would make more sense to make this one a little bit longer so that we can now get back on track. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of Whack-A-Roll Special Victims Unit. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram and YouTube, or send us an email via whackaroll@gmail.com. Any form of contact will get your name added to a pool to be plucked from the next time Luke flounders for an NPC name. If you're looking for something to comment on later this episode, we will be introducing character themes. I've written some short musical stings for each of the main 3 characters, so why not shoot us a line letting us know which one of those themes is your favourite. Anyway, that's enough from me, on with the show. Phalark, you are led straight to a room which has all your things in a crate.
Lovely.
That you are able to recollect and then go. The Thrakreen trophies have now obviously left all of your inventories, if any of you actually took note of those.
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
The other 2, you are first of all taken off to get your fines formally registered. You both are separated first of all, and you're both taken to identical small cells. They are windowless. There are just plain, like, sandstone walls and floors with one wooden table behind which sits a goblin for both of you.
Yay.
And when they enter, the goblins say, "Put out your palms."
Holds out the palms.
Yep, put out my palms.
The goblin pulls out a copper coin and places it on your palm, and there is a searing, burning pain.
Jesus
As
Christ!
that coin sets into your skin,
Oy vey.
and it has the number 3000 written on it.
Well, that's
So skin just says
fantastic.
3,000.
No. You have a copper coin embedded in your skin with the number 3000 on it.
Gil.
And I think the goblin nods and says, "The fine is formally registered. When you have paid off the fine, the prince will allow me to remove the coin."
But for the
Have a
meantime,
nice day.
+1 to bitch slaps.
Yeah.
And then you are led to a room with a crate with your belongings, and you can leave.
Hooray.
Sweet as.
When you guys leave, it is nighttime.
Nice.
Oh, cool. You guys got some prison ink as well.
What did you get?
I feel like rolls up his sleeve to show a tattoo that just is basically a scribbled version of Mr. Fingers.
Okay. First things first. Let's find somewhere that's like a hidden away little side alley.
I think you find a side alley.
Hooray. Now, I'm gonna
Yay.
look through the red lens at the thing and the moon. Or something. I'm trying to work out this
You're going
puzzle.
to look. You're going to look at the moon through the lens.
Yes.
You look up at the moon. On the moon, there is a glowing black text that
Need
says.
my reading glasses. It's far away.
It says it has a date, which is today's date.
Which is
Giant
Luke.
clock. The moon's a giant clock.
It was saying the campaign. Sorry, this arc started on. There is a calendar now.
Darmantium.
You guy can fuck
We
off.
know.
No, It was Darmanthia.
Sorry.
So I said you travelled for about 3 days. So you will be on the 19th of Harporin.
Nice.
Yeah. So in case anyone's curious, the country works on a 40-day calendar month. However, between the months of Darmanthia and Harporin, there is a 20-day month called Alar. Yeah, you guys made me fucking do this, so I went all fucking out.
Hey guys, subscribe to our Patreon, and Luke will tell you what your birthday is in Whack-A-Roll.
You will get your own unique star side for this world.
Yay! We also need to map the stars.
Fucking.
And we'll tell you which characters you're compatible with.
If we get 3,000 Wackerol subscribers within 2019, I will get the entire star map tattooed on my back. I will not. I will not.
You wouldn't have to anyway.
I'm not doing that. It's really expensive.
And painful.
Oh, fair point.
On the moon is the 19th of Harporum, and it has a small map. It's a sketch of a quick map that leads out of the city and a little west.
Yaga, what do your swamp eyes see?
We're going west out of the city.
Man, that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. We should have done that in the first place.
Shut up. We needed to wait for nighttime anyway.
Okay, but we could have done that in, like, a bar.
You all leave the city via a path to the west, and you follow out a small, trail. I guess it's not really a road so much as it is a trail in the sand. Just some more of these markers, a little bit more tightly packed, a little more condensed as you leave. And eventually you reach a graveyard to the west. And when you do, Al, I think you kind of like see through the red lens. There's a mausoleum that just has an X on one of the doors that you can only see wearing that mask that you've made.
Okay, I'm leading this, so I'll just walk on over. Ideally, they're following me.
You expect the mausoleum door to be a huge stone and very difficult to move. It slides open with no resistance, no issue at all. You instantly kind of see where you're supposed to go. When you enter this mausoleum, there is a torch-lit passageway that leads down into the earth.
Okay, I'm gonna lift off my mask so I can see a little bit.
I've got dark vision, I think.
I don't. I'm a human.
It's
I have
torchlit.
dark vision.
It's torchlit.
I have dark vision.
Can I take a torch?
Yeah, you take a torch off one of the sconces and you carry it down this corridor.
Cool. I
And
don't because I have dark vision.
Say.
As you descend deeper into the earth, you start to hear the chitter-chatter of voices coming from below. What do you do?
Sorry, chitter-chatter for spooky corridor necromancers. I just imagine all going...
What do you do?
That sounds like don't clear your throat, hear it.
But we're gonna have to see them anyway, so I just want to gently get their attention by just
You don't hear... There's no, stopping, I guess. And eventually you kind of, clump down to the main antechamber. You are... This spiraling passageway connects to this huge chamber filled with around 50 people. There are no purple robes or anything like that. They're just dressed normally, quite casually almost. Some of them are maybe a little bit dressed up, wearing, peasant finery, I guess is the best way of wording it. Their best tunics, their cleanest tunics. Yeah, their Sunday best. Of particular note in this room, there are a series of tunnel entrances. Maybe you assume that there are different entryways to this particular area, and they just use one per time. The area is very well carved out. It has these huge wooden supports connecting the connecting the ceiling together to make it a safe place to stay, and it's got this nice wooden floor. On the other side of the room, there is a small wooden stage with a pair of heavily robed figures sitting on it, sitting next to a bowl of incense. The floor of this room is covered in blankets and cushions, and a few people are just sort of sitting around and talking happily. And along one wall of the room, there is a makeshift kitchen, and there are people serving cheap ale and bowls of quite watery soup. You can see that a large number of the people here are actually homeless, and the homeless people and the failed traders from the outside of the city walls. They are queued up outside the counter, and they are accepting this food. What do you do?
I don't know.
Hello?
I think that maybe there is a young girl, and I mean like Philippe's age.
Oh.
So around 12. She is a small halfling girl, quite chubby cheeked, with these like bright ginger pigtails, and she kind of looks and says, "I haven't seen you here before."
No. We are due to the city. My name is Philippe, and these are my friends.
And she says, "My name is Puri." And she sort of smiles and says, "Is this your first service?" What's wrong, Al?
They named me like a 7 dwarf. They named me Puri because I'm poor.
Thanks, Al.
Where's the best place to sit?
I think Puri says, "You want to be sitting as close to the stage as possible. Come." And I think she grabs Philippe by the hand.
Why? What's gonna happen?
And starts to drag Philippe forwards through this crowd of people.
Philippe's got a girlfriend.
And I think... Oh, I think that as you guys, as Philippe is dragged through the crowd, do you guys follow?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think that as you do, a lot of the people are making note of you. They see you and they smile warmly and they wave.
Feel is used to this.
Mistrust.
Puri sort of like takes you to this pile of cushions, and then sort of like there are two other halflings there. One of them, you know, an elderly man with equally chubby cheeks and fiery red hair, and then this kindly woman who wears a barmaid's dress and has this sort of like very short, equally red hair. And then Puri says, "Mama, Papa, I found some friends. This is their first service. Can they sit with us?" And then the father just sort of like beams and says, "The more the merrier." And then sort of like squidges up in this quite cramped area to make room for you guys.
Cool.
Oh, they're all so nice.
Cool.
I like how Dora's react is, "Oh, that's so lovely." Me and Al like...
Mistrust.
So how long have you been here?
The dad kind of sits and counts for a second and then looks to his wife and says, "Is it 4 years?" And then she goes, "No, dear, it's 5. And they laugh. And then she's like, he says, 5 years. When my father died, that's when we started coming here.
Oh, sorry for your loss.
I think he sort of like smiles and says, "It's okay. Death is a part of everything here. You know, we all live, we all die. But we all go somewhere when we die. How much do you know about the services?" And he smiles.
Not a lot. We're new. We're new in town, and it gets worse.
I think they sort of like shrug and then say, "Well, all are welcome here."
Why are you all so friendly? Are you fucking Mormons?
I was thinking
They
they were
give
a
you a
bit
free
like
book.
they're not very like that intense religious family that you're just kind of like.
Yeah.
"Ugh."
Yeah, I think as I think the wife opens her mouth to say something when suddenly there is this burst of green flame from the stage. The bowl of incense in front of these two hooded figures flares up, and the crowd quiets down. And as the fire dies out, the smoke from these incense sticks starts to waft around the room, and it fills the room with this sort of smell of sandalwood. And the two necromancers on the stage let their hoods down. The first is an elderly gentleman. He looks human, but there are some slight inconsistencies. He has this pale, ash-coloured skin and a light, silvery hair tied back in a long braid that reaches the floor. Could you all give me perception checks for a second?
That's a whole 10.
11.
20, not nat.
Nice.
Yaga, occasionally in the smoke behind him, you see the smoke almost seems to form wings and a circle above his head like a halo at times.
Creepy.
You recognize him to be an Aasimar,
Oh shit, dog.
which is someone who has ascended in almost to saintliness. Some are born of angels, some are angels that have chosen a mortal life, and some of them are just people who have become so good that they in essence are like, gods are like, yup, that guy is good, yo, look at this, he's not human anymore, he's good.
Jeez.
We made this one good.
It's a good boy.
The other figure on the stage is a small Kenku woman.
Birdie?
She's slendered and almost malnourished. She's a raven. The most obvious thing about her is the fact that her face is horribly scarred. Like, horribly so. Her beak is... like, there are giant chips and scratches out of it that allow you to see inside her beak.
Jeez, Lou.
And while her eyes are fine, there are a lot of there's a lot of scarring either side of her head.
Sorry, no, is she okay?
I wanted to describe their robes quickly. Both of them are wearing these long black robes that are adorned with golden sigils of certain religious practices. You recognize some of them. Each one of you will recognize maybe one or two of them, and all of them relate to death. Some of them are more practice religions of the world. Some of them aren't. Some of them are very old. Some are new. There's just like lots of different sigils for death. And then the service begins. One by one, they call on members of the crowd.
Kumbaya Valor.
They call on one by one, and when they do, that person approaches the stage, and the Kenku takes a deep breath and starts to speak in a voice that isn't theirs. Kenkus don't have voices of their own. They mimic, they imitate voices that they hear. And this voice comes from within it. It's always something different. And whenever they speak, the Asimar on the stage focuses behind them. And the smoke forms into the shape of a person.
Sick vape, bro.
I hate you so much. I think you all catch on to what's happening pretty quickly, but it's all solidified for you when the father of Puri is called up onto the stage, and this spirit stands before him, and he says it's his father. They are channeling spirits to allow their loved ones to talk to them. At one point, the service is kind of winding down. The smoke in the room is starting to sort of die out. And then the Asimar sort of stretches his back, and then his eyes sort of like flick almost like worriedly for a second. I don't think a lot of the people in the room catch it, but I think the three of you do. Something's wrong. From within the Kenku's beak, blood spurts out, just a little bit. And then her eyes look to the three of you. The Asimar says,
"Oh, I didn't realize we have new members. Come, approach the stage."
Guess we'll go.
Philippe heads on up.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? Why not?
Reluctantly, but yeah.
Hello.
I think that you come up to the stage. I think that the Asimar, kind of like as you approach the stage, shakes each of your hands. He like gets on one knee almost to shake Philippe's hand. I think he goes to shake Yaga's hand. I assume that she kind of like doesn't. I think he respects that. And then he, with each of you, says, "Hello, my name is Father Arrest."
Oh, ears! I'm like,
Arrest, yes. And then he kind of like gestures to the Kenku, and he's like, "This is Shea. She will be channeling for you today." And then you all sort of sit on the stage, and the world almost falls away from you.
We're in the sunken place.
I didn't need a channeling. I just...
Phalar, you are like almost drowning in silk. You are falling through this bright, lavishly coloured cloth that you recognize. You recognize this cloth as a big top.
Oh.
And when you fall out of it, you see your family. Tell us who you see, Tom.
Phalark's backstory brought to you straight from Psychonauts.
When Phalark sees his family, it's not just like, it's not his mom and dad or anything like that. It's a group of people of all different shapes and sizes, around 20 or so of them.
And I think to make sure that me and Tom are talking about this, it's not all of the ones that you travelled with, obviously. Some of them are just old. Some of these are the people that while you were travelling passed of old age, for sure, I think. But then there are the others.
Yeah, but of particular note are two individuals, a gnomish gentleman with sort of...
Your ex. Your angry ex.
a gnomish gentleman with very stark white but wispy hair, almost to the point where it looks like it's just fading out into nothing as it drifts away from his head, and a portly elven chap with a long black moustache and goatee.
I think that as you tumble out of this big top into a sprawling grass field, you see these people before you, and they all run to you. They run to you in this moment of just like pure acceptance and happiness and safety. They were always your safety net, and you feel that once more as they just sort of embrace you, and they are like excitedly like bouncing between you, like, you know, one of them like tugs you aside to show you that they still got it with their juggling. You know, they show that they are like learning to juggle all new manner of stuff and all greater speeds, and there are dancers there who sort of like don't just like hug you but like leap onto you, knocking you to the ground, but like you're acrobats by trade. They tumble and you stand up perfectly. And then there are these two. This gnome. Can I ask who the gnome is?
The gnome's name is Petrovich. And the elven chap is named Brahms.
Petrovich and Brahms, they don't run to you. They stand up, like, just so relieved to see you. And I think that Brahms is the first one to talk to you. And he says, "I thought the bastards got you when they got me!" And they just hug you.
I've missed you so much. Where have you been?
And I think that he smiles and says, "Phalark, you know where you are."
I must be honest, I'm feeling a bit out of sorts.
And I think Brahms goes to speak and he's like, "Don't worry, Phalark." And then, like, his mouth starts to move, but no noise comes out of it. In fact, like, everything seems to be fading really quickly, but not just fading. Things are changing. The grass is growing longer and longer, and you hear another voice. A voice you do not recognize at all.
Where'd you go?
A woman's voice who calls out and is like, "Phalark?
Who's that?
Phalark, is that...
Who's there?
It's really you, Phalark." And you see from the grass beneath your feet this long, like, silvery, like, lady's hand reaches out towards you. What do you do?
I think instinctively he steps back as a hand coming out the floor. He's played Ocarina of Time. You don't like that.
Wait.
I think the voice like, "Phalark?
Who
Are you there?
Who are you?
Son?" And then the hand pulls away, yanked away suddenly. And this dream, you are ripped from this dream and you're back on the incense-filled stage.
Hello.
You are in a painted world. A world that you recognize from maybe some of the earliest drawings you ever did. You know that way that children have those fancy worlds of their creation? I feel like Philippe especially, this young artist, has one of his own.
Yep.
And I think that you're sitting in this forest glade, this beautifully painted forest glade of brush strokes, and there are some poorly drawn creations bouncing around. You know, maybe like one of Philippe's first attempts at drawing a rabbit hops through, followed by a better rendition, and then a better rendition until we see almost a photorealistic rabbit just sort of hopping through this field.
And then there's one that when you tilt its head a certain way, it looks like a duck.
And then you see in the tree line a woman.
Mama?
And I think she gets on her knees and she puts her arms out to embrace you.
Philippe runs straight in. Runs and hugs.
And you run to hug into her and you tumble straight through her into the grass. Aww. And then she sort of like looks around and goes, Philippe? You gave Philippe this dumb voice. She has to have the dumb voice back.
No.
Yes, Mama.
Now, Philippe, how do you recognize this as your mother? You've never seen your mother before.
It's the mother that
Philippe
he drew in his imagination.
It's a stick figure.
This is not a drawn figure. This is a real person that you are
Quote
seeing.
unquote.
Well, like, I don't know. Philippe just feels it in his gut. He just knows.
I think this is definitely a figure. I think you see traces of your auntie in her.
Yeah.
Like, you see enough of your auntie in her, like, wild hair and those, like, rebellious eyes that your auntie has to know instantly that this
And she has
woman
a
could be
mullet.
nothing.
Okay.
To know that this woman could be nothing
Damn
but
it.
Philippe's mother. She vanishes, you tumble straight through her, and then she reappears in the exact same spot. She sort of stands up and she's like, Philippe, my son. And then sort of like she tries at this time, she runs to hug you, but like when she gets too close to you, she sort of like vanishes, and again, like she blinks out almost, like the image of her stutters. It blinks in, out, and then vanishes completely and reappears in the center of this forest glade.
Mama, I don't think we can touch. I don't think we can hug.
She kind of just sort of smiles, and I think for the first time she takes her eyes off of you and looks at the glade itself, this beautiful grass, this like these rays of sunlight trickling down, and says, Philippe, did you draw all this?
Yes, I have improved greatly than this place, but yes, I drew all this.
I think she calls you over to her, and then when she does, she vanishes for a second and then reappears again.
Mama, do you know where Papa is?
I think that she sort of like looks a bit concerned and she says, he's not with you?
No, I have very little knowledge of him. I live with your sister, Auntie Lenora.
Who?
What? You know, Auntie Lenora.
My sister's name is Felicity.
And that's just gonna be Philippe's response, because he's a kid. He doesn't know how to react. I don't know how to react.
And I think at this point, the glade starts to fleck, like old paint rubbing off of a canvas. And I think that she sort of smells and says, I think our time is up, Philippe. And then she steels herself. She takes a deep breath, and her arm, she reaches one arm backwards towards where this fleck of, like the flecking, I guess, is happening. And she focuses so hard, and half of her body disappears. And with the other half, she dives towards Philippe and gives you this one-armed hug. You bury your face into her shoulder. For the very first time, Philippe hugs his mother.
I'm actually tearing up, lads.
Aww.
My boy!
You are just sitting on the stage by yourself for a while. You see your friends sort of like dazing off, like almost like they're flitting in and out of sleep. And you can see these spirits behind you, and you can actually hear voices coming from Shea. You can hear the voices of the Carney folk. You can hear the voices of this woman with, Philippe's ridiculous accent. And, but you're hearing them like lapping over each other on top of themselves. And then you hear a voice. I don't think it's a voice you recognize. I think it is this deep, angry growl that just says, "I smell you, Yaga. I'm coming, Yaga." And then you fall. The stage turns to sand, and you begin to fall. And you fall forever. It feels like you are falling for days upon days. And as you look at your skin grows younger, and then...
Imagining Gandalf when he's fighting the Balrog just falling through this pit for ages.
But your skin grows younger, then older, then younger, then older, then younger, then older, then younger, then older, then younger, then older, and then it stops on older. And you find yourself standing in a forest glade. You're standing in this clearing with this beautiful glittering oasis in front of you, and you're holding this old wrinkled staff. Beside you are two soldier types. We will discuss those in a little bit more detail next week. However, there is another figure in this glade. In front of you stands a figure you saw in a drawing. He is a dragonborn, clad in armor with this blood red standard on his back, carrying this huge, ugly pike and a shard of black glass. The Tyrant of the Sands, Aijal, stands before you.
He turns his attention from whatever it was he was looking at, and he lays eyes on you, Yaga. At which point he then just sort of smiles and says, "Yaga, so you've come at last."